Hi and welcome to the Geek Legion of Doom. This is a comedy movie review and I'll be having a look at the movie The Gamer's Hands of Fate. So this is actually the third movie in a kind of series of movies by these guys, but it really is a standalone film. I've not seen the previous two movies of this, and I didn't even realise it was a third movie, so you can watch this one completely separately. And really this is focused on the world of the customizable card games, kind of role-playing type games. And essentially this is kind of almost like a Rocky story where we have someone who sort of starts getting into this sort of card game, to be honest, initially just to try and pull this sort of female gamer who he kind of fancies, who's sort of playing this game. So he decides to sort of start playing the game himself and ends up sort of being entered into this tournament to sort of try and impress her ultimately, and sort of try and overthrow the kind of these group of people who basically monopolise the game for the kind of their own individual sort of need to try and sort of get money from it ultimately. And really, the story really here is this guy called Cass, who is ultimately sort of gets this kind of like very sort of rare deck of cards from this kind of one of his friends, and ultimately sort of goes up through the ranks to sort of try and defeat these kind of like other players in various sort of card tournaments. So this really is going to depend on how much you kind of like these sort of customizable card games. I'll be quite honest with you, I have never played these kind of games, so this is going to affect your enjoyment of this film greatly. I still kind of enjoy it because there is kind of quite a lot of kind of like pop sort of culture references and things like that. There's also a kind of concurrent storylines that are running as well, as these sort of players are playing these sort of the games in the kind of real world. We also see scenes that are kind of, I guess, in this player's sort of imagination, of these kind of fantasy things actually sort of happening in the kind of this fantasy realm, obviously on a very, very low budget scale, because this film really is a kind of micro budget movie, but it's still kind of fun to watch. Now, despite the fact that I'm not really into these card games, I still found it reasonably interesting to watch, but it is an extremely low budget film. The acting here is very kind of amateurish, I have to say, and you can kind of tell it's you know, some characters especially just seem, their delivery of lines seem very, very painful. The main issue I have here with this movie is it is way too long. It's far too long and has far too many kind of completely irrelevant sort of subplots. There's a subplot involving this kind of this guy who's kind of a friend of the main character, who's got an issue with what's meant to be Pokemon ultimately. It's kind of, they don't say it's Pokemon, but it is what it is. And he has kind of this sort of like almost mental breakdown where he is kind of trying to fight this kind of guy dressed up as this sort of Pikachu type character. It has no effect on the actual story, and it just inflates the running time where it's far too long, and this film massively drags because of it. The other thing is it's obviously meant to be a comedy. The comedy is misses a few strokes as well. Some of it was quite amusing, but to be honest with you, I found a lot of the jokes missing. Again, this is going to be one thing where you'd maybe feel, if you were more interested in this kind of type of hobby, you're probably going to get more out of it. There were some amusing moments, but to be honest with you, I only kind of found some of them funny. The other thing, I guess, the other criticism I have of it is the characterization. Now, there's a kind of like a female gamer. And one of the sort of interesting things that this film brings up is kind of like maybe the sort of sexist attitude towards sort of females within geek culture. The kind of, she gets sort of chastised throughout the movie for kind of being a girl in almost like a kind of this kind of like male-dominated world. And that's kind of an interesting thing. It goes back to this kind of like fake geek girl things that everyone was banging about for a little while. But to be honest, I mean, she's kind of meant to be the motivation for this sort of guy sort of going into this quest, but I found her character extremely unlikable. And she's obviously not meant to be written that way, but she comes across like it. She just seems to be whining and bitching the whole way through the film until you get to the very, very end of the movie. And the guy who's kind of like the main character, Cass, he's meant to be a bit of a cocky douche, and that's the way his character is meant to be portrayed. But I actually found her character to be far more kind of unlikable than his. So it's a kind of a bit of a mishmash, because there are some good ideas, and obviously the budget is only going to stretch so far. And you know, this is going to be one film where I'm going to kind of break a rule that I haven't done before and actually give it 2 ratings. If you're a non-fan of these sort of card games like I am, you just like sort of geek culture as a sort of general rule of thumb, I'm going to give this one a 4.5 out of 10. if you're a fan of these sort of card games, I'm going to give it a 6.5 because you're going to get a lot more from it. I still don't think it's a fantastic film, to be quite honest, but you'll get a hell of a lot more from it if you are, you know, a fan of these sort of type of things. So, what's your opinion? Leave me a comment. I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.